it up.
It's more liberated.
Fresh.
That'll people heaven hell. Visit people, oh my God, don't understand. Buddy,
Hey, who'd you talk to? What's going on? It is me, Mike Lepre, King Mike Gill. This is Legit Paranormal, brought to you by legitpodcast.com. It is July 31st, 2022. That's 07312022. Buddy, I got nothing. 7 minus 3 is 4. You still, and then what? You get it doesn't even work. There's nothing we can do for the math geeks. Joining me as always, Buddy Money. There. What's up, buddy?
Good evening, Michael. How you doing this evening?
Buddy, this is my life has become like a John Hughes film. It's I saved the dog last night.
Right.
A little scrappy dog. It's unbelievable. I almost got hit twice by 2 different cars.
Wow.
I had to sleep in the basement with the son of a gun because, I can't bring him upstairs. Kobe would swallow him.
Right, of course.
And then at 10 a.m., they came and picked him up, and the dad's trying to show me papers, and the little girl's petting the dog, and the dog's finally wagging his tail and going crazy for the first time since I saw him. And I'm like, you're good with the papers. He goes, no, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I pretty much figured out that that's her dog. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a good story, Mike. That's heartwarming. I actually have one for the Math Geeks this evening, Mike, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
On Friday, actually, I went out to one of the finer breweries here in the Providence County area. It's called Long Live Brewery. Long Live Beer Works in Providence. They did a collaboration. So 1 + 1 equals 1, equals 2, but equals 1. They did a collaboration with Hive Beer, which sits down with Grace Ale down in Wesley. And they're a honey. Hive is a honey beer, and they made this very sweet double IPA. It's delicious. I recommend it to anybody. It's called Love and Honey.
Okay,
it's very delicious.
Well, thank you so much. Now let me tell you something. Last night I watched SummerSlam, and it was one of the greatest wrestling events I've seen in a long time. Brock Lesnar used this gigantic thing to flip the whole wrestling ring over. So joining me as always, Joey Paranormal. Joey, did you at least see him do that with the?
Yeah, I've been able to catch all the little snippets, all the highlights, and before Wednesday, when we finally make our triumphant return, I will have watched a majority, if not all, of SummerSlam. Because it seems that with Triple H now head of creative, it has changed drastically very quickly. Last night was one of the better pay-per-views or live events, whatever they're calling it now, that they've put on in a while.
Listen, let me wrap with you quick. They put Triple H in control.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what
he came back healthy at the right time, Joe. It happened exactly like we thought.
Yep.
Whatever. Buddy, do the introductions.
So tune in Wednesday for wrestling. This is the Paranormal. Joining us this evening, live from Ohio, I believe. He's an author of at least what 9 or 10 books. He's a producer. He's a director. He's a paranormal investigator, I'd say. World traveler as of late. Welcome to the show, Mike Ricksecker.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate being on. 12 books.
Nice. Mike, let me ask you something about like when you get like titles. Do you like the more titles that you get? Are you happy about it, or do you start to get like to a point where you're like, and I might have too many titles. People are gonna be like, oh God, it's a paragraph. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not so much into the title. Years ago, I used to call myself a ghostorian to try to, define, okay, what is it that I do? So it's like, I didn't want to step on the toes of historians, people that actually have a master's of in history. So it was like, well, I do ghosts and history, so ghost story, and that. And so I was calling myself that for a while, but I've stepped away from it because I'm doing so many other things. I mean, first and foremost, I'm an author, so that's what I primarily do. And then, of course, as a writer, I'm also a researcher, but I'm a filmmaker as well. So because I have the Shadow Dimension docuseries that's out there, doing a second season in post-production right now, and have some other documentaries that are on the way.
That's awesome. You ever see Buried, Ryan Reynolds, where he's in the coffin the whole time?
No, I haven't seen that.
All right, but you've heard about it? You
Yeah.
hear about it? And then there's like ATM, and then there's a couple other movies. The kid I grew up with, that lived like next door to me, wrote those movies.
Oh yeah. Very cool.
And it's weird because he has all of a sudden become a writer more of horror. Like the last movie was like Intrusion. I think his name was like a big Netflix movie.
Okay.
He's got like a deal with Netflix. But my idea was I wanted to bring back the Mighty Heroes from remember the Mighty Heroes, like Diaper Man and Cuckoo, and I thought if you brought them back live action, that would be a killer.
There you go. That'd be fun.
Different age groups, but no one listens to what I say. But anyways, yeah, it's funny how I guess I've got to meet so many authors now of different things that I'm watching or that I'm following. It's weird. When you get creative, are you the type of person that you schedule time, or does it have to happen?
It's tough to schedule time because I have so many different things going on. I'll have like a Sunday night, might be a time where I'm usually getting creative and I'm working on my projects. But you guys asked me to come on tonight, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come on. So I'll work on stuff at another time. So it's really whenever I can get a chance to work on it. If I don't have something like this scheduled, or I'm working on if like I'm filming out somewhere or whatever, I try to cram in as much as I can.
That's really hard because creatively for me, whatever it is that I do, if it's music or whatever, not, I did write a book, and we do the podcast. So there's a million things going on at once. Like I'm more of a when it hits me, I write it down, and it hits me sometimes. I don't know if it happens to you too. It hits me in big chunks, so I'm lucky like that. But if I schedule time, I gotta be honest. If I say like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit down at 7:00 and I'm gonna write something that's somewhat creative," I get this school feeling, like where I'm like,
right,
I don't want to sit there. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
Yeah,
Joey,
it hits you when it hits you. I mean, there might be sometimes I'm sitting there, at night in bed, and something comes to me, and so I'll get out my phone and start, jotting down notes, and I'll email it to myself. And the next morning, I'll pick it up and put it into whatever I had been working on. Yeah.
That's smart, because you must hear you've probably heard, maybe I want to say about 3 million times, someone say back to you, I got a book, or I'm writing a book, and then you'll say, really? Well, what have you written? And they'll be like, oh, I haven't written it down yet, but I have it all in my head, and I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I had to go through the labor of writing a book, and it was such a miserably long, drawn out labor that now when I hear it, I go, I want to tell them to shut up, because you don't. Until you start actually putting in the work, which is the hardest part by far, is sitting down and writing or typing, whatever it is, actually doing it. It's really hard. So you're disciplined.
It is. My first book took me over 3 years to write. And I was raising little kids at the time. It was like during my lunch break at work, I'm jotting down a few things or whatever, at night after they've gone to bed, and it's like I'm, tired, and it's like 11 p.m. I'm like, okay, I'll write a few lines. So that was a long process. But yeah, I've heard people, say things like, well, I've got a great idea for a book, but I don't want to start writing it until I have it like perfectly in place. I'm gonna do this, and it's like, well, just start doing it, because it's a craft. My first book that I put out there, I look back at it now, there's some parts of it I'm like, that was written really well, but a lot of it I kind of cringe. I'm like, ooh, I wish I could have done that better. And it's taken many, many years to kind of hone that craft. So those that are kind of just like waiting, it's like, what I tell people, okay, writing advice, two things. One, read. You know, the more you read, the more, you know, you're helping, you know, kind of exercise that brain. Plus you're learning about writing style as you're reading these other books. And then the second thing, write. You know, your own, it's kind of like muscle memory with sports. You know, your best players, you know, they're sitting there like baseball players, you know, they're in the batting cage forever, hours and hours and hours hitting the dang ball. They you know, hone that muscle memory. Same thing with writing. It is, you know, the brain's a type of muscle, and you know, we call it an organ, but really it is, you know, another muscle. And so you're going to hone that craft the more you write.
It's like that in almost everything. Like, I know this is silly, but some people will tell me, I'm going to host a podcast, and I go, okay. And they're like, yeah, I'm just going to get a camera set up and do it. And it's like, have you ever thought it through? Have you ever thought the timing of if it's an hour? Are you scheduling the first 15 minutes? The next, like this, you have to practice at something and do it to be good at it. To come up to somebody that's been doing it for a long time and just go, hey, I'm going to play guitar. It's like, yeah, you are.
Right, exactly.
You are.
Yeah,
huh?
even with the filmmaking I do. Okay, I have the Shadow Dimension docuseries, came out last year. I got second season coming out. Yeah, but you know, I put out over 700 videos on YouTube first. Yeah. So that was my learning ground, right? That was my training ground. That's where I was learning my craft and actually how to put these, you know, different elements together. So you look at my really early stuff, oh, it's terrible, but I had to start somewhere, you know? And it took years to do that.
I've been nodding my head the whole time he's been saying that, buddy, because Buddy and Joseph, what did I tell you guys way back? The only thing we had to focus on was just keep doing shows.
Right.
And we're now like almost 2 years in. You know what I mean?
There you go.
I've done it. I got over 300, 400. Too much, way too much me talking. Like, honestly, in my own opinion, I was looking at it, I'm going, I don't even want to hear my own voice for 2 minutes. So I got to scroll through it, and it's like I got to listen to me myself. I'm like, oh, God damn it. But there's like 300 hours. So it's like the more you do it, the better you get. The more refined, you figure things out.
Absolutely.
And everything. Now, so into the paranormal, however, I need to ask this because I ask this a lot of people. Why? Like, why did you get? Why?
I'm an experiencer. You know, I had experiences when I was a little kid growing up. First, you know, real significant paranormal experience. I was about 8 years old. Woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a tall, dark shadow standing in the corner of my bedroom. You know, these days it's like, okay, you know, that's a shadow person, but I had no idea about that as a kid. You know, I thought there was an intruder in the house. Somebody had broken in, and you know, they were either gonna, you know, rob the place or, you know, they were going to kill me. You know, it's about what you think at 8 years old. You know, I'd seen enough movies, right, where it was like I had enough time to gasp, and that's it. I was going to be gone. Fortunately, I'm still alive to tell the tale.
Mike,
but
let me just stop you really quick in this. So, all right, I don't want to say I have an issue with shadow people, as if like we fight.
I have an issue with
mean shadow people fight. But of all the things that I think of, like that bother me the most, that I have a hard time with, is shadow people, because shadows and reflections, and I mean, with me getting old and losing my eyesight, like the shadows and blips that I see that I know are just me being old. Like, I'm just saying, like, that's the hardest one for me to really, I guess, because it's never happened to me. Buddy,
Okay.
your thoughts?
All right. As an investigator, Mike, as a person, I've seen shadows.
Sure.
Whether they're walking across a hallway or out of peripheral vision, in the house that I'm sitting in that belongs to my family, or in a client's home. This thought out there, and I imagine that you subscribe to this thought, that these shadow people are an entity all their own. It's is it a negative or an elemental, or it's not necessarily light traveling through an object and casting a shadow, as it is an entity all its own. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, it depends. There's a lot of different types of shadow entities. That's why I have a whole book, A Walk in the Shadows, dedicated to this subject.
I know,
there's
but
a lot of different kinds.
So pretend that I speak for the dumb. Like, I am like the champion of the dumb, and like, it's like, what is a shadow person? Because I would love to know.
Yeah, that's the question I get asked all the time, and it's like, and really the answer is, well, that depends.
Give me one.
It's like, okay, so okay, you take just okay, so you take a like just take it like an animal, okay?
Yeah.
You know, like a dog or something like that. There's a lot of different types of dogs, right? They don't all look the same. You know, when you take shadow entities, okay, you have like your humanoid figures, you have your hat wearing entities, you have your hooded figures, you have mists, wisps, crawlers, the old hag, all these different types of forms. They're not all the same thing.
Okay, I get that. So there's
yeah.
many versions of them. So all right,
Right.
where are they coming from? Is it
Again, it depends. So
Okay.
you have some that are human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition, come off as a shadow. You have some that are actually extraterrestrials. You have some that are light beings. You have some that are interdimensional beings. So basically, what it is you have a lot of different species of supernatural entities that are using the same energetic modality, which is the shadow, to enter into our plane of existence. And so they come off looking similar in the fact that they're a shadow, but they also have different characteristics about them.
All right. So, multiple shadow people. Some are interdimensional. Now,
Yeah.
my first question would be, well, how do you know that? And I don't mean any offense by that. I'm just being honest. Like that's if you want honest, that would be my next question. Because if someone said it to me, I'd be, well, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that there's so many different versions? Like, how do we get proof on so many different variations?
Well, okay, so like the human spirit manifesting as a shadow rather than an apparition. So for a long time, I actually kept human spirits are human spirits, shadow entities are shadow entities, completely separate things. I did that for a long time, and I changed my mind over the years. I'd had a number of people come to me after conferences or presentations I was giving, things like that, telling me about their personal experiences. And some people were saying, well, I know it was my great Aunt Tilly, or I think it was this person that had lived in the house years ago. That was the vibe that they were getting. I had a good friend of mine, Rob Guttrow, psychic medium, trust him with my life, and he's telling me the story about how an aunt of his had appeared to him to deliver a message to his mother, but she had expended so much energy she could only come across as a shadow. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I trust Rob. So over time, I started to kind of waver on that and kind of give that idea some credence. But then some years back, I actually saw it with my own eyes. We're doing a paranormal investigation, Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois, and we're doing an EVP session in the one room. All of a sudden, we hear some noises coming out from the hallway. So we go out there and we check it out. We see this black smoke rolling from down the hall. At first, we're thinking, maybe there's a fire in the building or something like that. We didn't smell it or anything like that. But as it's coming closer and closer, it's like creeping up the wall on the right-hand side, creep back down, creep back up, creep back down. All the while, it's coming closer and closer. And finally, about halfway down the hall, it morphs into an apparition of a little girl. There's 5 of us that saw this. So it's like, okay, so there, I finally saw a shadow, the black amorphous cloud type, what we'd call the mist, it actually morphed into the apparition of a little girl. So good, great. I finally saw it with my own eyes.
All right, so two things. One, did you see Mineral Springs? What's the name
Mineral
of it?
Springs Hotel, Alton, Illinois. Yeah.
Oh my God, man. Here's the funny thing. I actually have a photo. I wish I could pull. I won't pull it up, but it's a photo of me and Dave, and it says straight out of Mineral Springs.
Nice.
Because that's the main road of my hometown. Like that's like,
oh yeah,
we call it Miserable Spring because you can't
traffic
get
is
through.
ridiculous.
You're there the whole time.
Nice.
All right. So secondly, I guess what I'm trying to get at, because this is what my thought is. So it's coming from somewhere, right? It's coming out of somewhere. Is it the opposite side of us? I'm trying to figure this out. Is it?
Can I interject a theory here?
There you go. Go ahead. Of course.
So I kind of sometimes when I think of it like as a because you asked like where does the shadow person come from? Why is it a shadow person? Why don't you see a full-bodied real apparition that some people claim to see? And I kind of sometimes equate it to black shadows. It's the absence of light, and what's a spirit doing is it's drawing energy, and if it's using energy that is light and it's pulling light, you're kind of seeing that absence of light distorted or manifest as a shadow, because the shadow's not being the shadow's not being cast from a light source, but it could be using light or spiritual light as an energy source that kind of creates that shadow form, because it is now the absence of light. And I know that seems that might be like kind of a little crazy, but sometimes that's how I think of it.
Yeah, no, that's not crazy. So, like when I talk about, some of these are actually light beings. Two things about. I mean, you're kind of, okay, on the right path there. The occlusional light, that sort of thing. So when we talk about a light being, a lot of times, okay, we'll take like a deathbed scene at a hospital. People have walked into, hospital rooms, and they'll see like light beings, kind of around the person, or they might see what somebody would call a shadow person. Like, oh no, they're headed to, someplace bad or whatever. That's not necessarily true. Because a lot of times when a lot of different spectrums of light are outside of our human field of vision, we can't see them. So when we're looking at something like a light beam, the light that's projecting might go far past what our human eyes can actually see. Or another way to look at it is, take like a light bulb. I'm not encouraging people to do this because I don't want to get accused of blinding people, but stare at a light bulb long enough, and what do you start to see? You start to see the silhouette of the light bulb. You don't really see the light anymore.
That's true. This is true. All right. So then let me ask this next question. Are certain people prone to seeing shadow people, and certain people are I'm going to use this word, unprone?
Unprone. Yeah. Actually.
Unprone.
Yeah. Yeah, actually. Because I mean, I'm a person that sees more apparitions, or I'm sorry, I'm a person that sees more shadows than apparitions, and other people see more apparitions than shadows. It doesn't mean I will never see an apparition. I do on occasion, but I mostly see shadows. So yeah, the question is, why is that? So I believe it comes down to personal resonance, frequency, vibration. Everything on this planet is vibrating. Everything in the universe is to some degree. Yeah,
vibrations. I agree with that. I'm big on
absolutely. That. So the human body operates within a certain frequency range, but everybody's a little bit different. We're all on a little bit of a different scale. Same thing with these different supernatural entities that we're encountering. They're all in a little bit of a different frequency range themselves. So when I walk into a room, there's something else that's there that's not usually in our field of vision. But it's over there, vibrating in its frequency is in vibration is kind of I guess manifesting into the room. Based on whatever my frequency is, I might be able to actually tune into that and see it. And the person standing next to me might not, because their frequency and vibration is on a little bit of a different level than mine. So that story that I talked about earlier with the little girl, with the shadow manifesting into the little girl, we all saw her a little bit differently, where I saw her like fully manifested from the head down to about her knees, and then she started to dissipate away. Others saw her fully formed at the feet, which I never saw, and started to dissipate away at her head. And that's kind of attributes to that idea of everybody's kind of vibrating a little bit of a different frequency, including the entity itself. Also, let me finish up here real quick. So, and I also believe that a person's body can become in tune to some of these different things. So I've been, seeing these shadows ever since I was a little kid. And I think what's happened over time is that my body's become in tune to that. So when, that type of frequency and resonance and vibration is in the room, my body is more quickly able to tune into that and pick up on it, rather than somebody else who's maybe never experienced it before.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, and that's fantastic. That made a lot of sense. So here's my theory.
All right.
Can't someone be tuned differently to have their, whatever it is that their soul is, whatever they got going for them, in a different direction? Because in other words, I don't see anything. I don't see stuff like that. Like, I think I saw a UFO once, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But I don't see shadow people. So my point is, you think it just went differently for me? Because I don't feel like I'm open to any of that stuff. Like, I don't want to see it, I'll be honest, and I don't see it. So it works out that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact that you don't want to see it probably that probably aids in the you not being able to see it, because if you don't want to, then part of your body is going to be closed off to that. So you're probably in the middle somewhere. I'm seeing more shadows than anything else, just because I've been doing that longer. My body's become in tune to that. Where somebody's on, the other end of the spectrum and they're seeing apparitions, or maybe even, other different things. Some people talk about seeing a shimmer type person or whatever. What the heck is that?
Right.
That's kind of totally something else. So, but yeah, I think there's like this whole wide, spectrum of different things that based on where we are that we could possibly see, and maybe you're just in the middle somewhere.
Mike, I've noticed that earlier on in my life that I saw a lot more shadows, whereas now in the last year or so I've done a lot more Reiki, and I noticed after doing the Reiki I've had I don't want to say that my veil is thinner, but I've seen people, and then I look and they're not there, and then I'm able to research these people, and it's like either a photograph or somebody's memory, or like the back of that draft card, and it's like a dead ringer for these people. Do you believe that stuff like Reiki and energy work can open you up further to experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're using different types of energy, where before you were just experiencing something, and now you're actually trying to use and manipulate energy. So that's going to bring with it all kinds of other different things. Sure.
Cool.
See, this sounds weird, but here's where I felt energy and why I believe in vibrations. If you've ever been in a band where you play music, and it's different when everyone's playing perfectly in sync, not like in sync the
Gotcha.
But let's talk about like a rock group. Well, that was weird. I mentioned in sync and my phone decided to dial me. What I'm trying to say is there's a moment when you're in the middle of it that there's a vibration to it. There's just like obviously everybody's in a tune. You're in tune, but it's just something to it where you can feel the vibration of it. So I've always believed in everything revolves around vibrations. I'll go crazy with that, almost mark it. But Joey, let me ask you this: have you seen a shadow person?
So I think this ties in with the question we just got.
Wait.
In the chat.
How long is it going to be? How long is it going to be, though, Joe?
All right, let me just. Hey, someone
Joey,
asked in the chat with
HR on Wednesday, 1:30. Buddy, write it down. All right, go ahead. Continue, Joe.
Someone asked in the chat, with y'all's growth as a paranormal investigator, do you see more stuff now? I've never experienced a full apparition. The only thing I've ever seen was on my very first investigation. Buddy wasn't there. We were at Smith's Castle on Rhode Island, and I just happened to see we had an investigator who was in another room. Blinds were closed really late at night. We kind of
you're at the paint house, but go
paint house. Sorry, kind of was able to rule out existential lights. And where her face would have been, there were these glowing orbs that were kind of transposed on her face, almost like cat's eyes in a photo. And it was weird. I wasn't the only one who saw it. It was corroborated. But I haven't seen anything personally. I've heard a lot. I experienced a lot of auditory experiences. As a paranormal investigator, kind of to answer Sarah, for me at least, I think my veil's almost possibly thicker than it was when I started, because I'm kind of like Mike, where if I'm at home, I don't want to hear or see anything. I don't really want to hear or see it because I'm so grounded in kind of trying to find the logical answer that a lot of times I can convince myself if I hear or see something, it's definitely not paranormal until there's no other option. So I think I've still been able to kind of keep myself grounded, and I don't hear or see anything more than I did almost 10 years ago now when I started.
So Mike, my question is, does that make me and Joe defunct? There's something wrong?
No, there's nothing wrong with you guys. I mean, it sounds like you've kind of set up some boundaries there, which is totally fine, especially in the home. And I totally understand that, why you wouldn't want things to come visit you at home, especially if you've got kids and things like that. You're trying to, your home is supposed to be a safe place. You don't want things kind of, moving in and out. So I totally understand that. Yeah.
I did have
Joe, hold up. Plus, grab your drinks. Mike, I grew up completely Italian. Both sides of my family, Italian. So they had such odd, they would do weird things. It was just a weird vibe, Italians. They had their own paranormal, right? But they always said they would block the house or block whatever, or block you. So even my parents my mom passed just recently, day after Christmas. She said she would haunt me by giving me signs, but she also said she would protect me if she could. So
Okay.
I've literally had a relative say that. So in a weird way, I've always felt like I'm there, but I do have some buffer, like a protection that's helping me because they know that I don't want to deal with that. Like that's too much for my mind to handle right now. I got so much other stuff going on. My God, if I started seeing that stuff, I'd be like, now I got to deal with this. Like it'd be like, oh boy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It must be hard. I don't see how you take it as so happy, calm. Like it would bother me. Shadow people would bother me. I'm being honest. Like I would be like, trying to figure out how to get them out of there. That's the first.
Well,
thing
I mean,
would
the
think.
first one I ever experienced, yeah, that was scary, and it got physical with me. You know, it like crossed my arms across my
Jesus.
body before it ran off down the hall. But the other ones that I seen, like the second one, when I was 13, we moved into a new house, and he's just like popping into the doorway. It's very different. It was like very translucent. The other one had been very solid. This one's more translucent. You kind of see the form. And he would just, I turned to look at him, he'd take off down the hallway. So he wasn't getting interactive with me. He was just like checking things out, scoping out the new family sort of thing. I ended up getting playful with him, calling Tom, because he was like peeping Tom. Like, hey, Tom, how you doing? And off he'd run, so each one's a little bit different. And so like that second experience, which lasted for several months, the first experience was just like a one-off, it happened one time, that was it. But that second experience, it was like 3 or 4 months where this was going on, and he was more skittish than anything else. So I was like, okay.
Did
you mentioned extraterrestrial shadow people? Can you talk about that at all?
Wait a minute, hold on. Wait. Did you gain more control with the shadow people? Is what I wanted to ask right there. In other words, you weren't worried as much. Like you were calmer around them.
I was calmer around that one because he was just different. I mean, he was a different type of shadow, and I didn't really necessarily even think of him as a shadow. I mean, at that age, what I kind of chalked it up to was that, there was somebody or something that was at the house that was curious about the new family. It was just kind of scoping us out, which was different than, what I experienced the first time. So I almost thought like maybe it possibly, maybe it was a human spirit, but I wasn't really sure at that time because I didn't know from all this different stuff at that point. And I was like, I don't know what this thing is. It was scoping out the family, and I guess deemed that we were okay because it kind of just went about its business and stopped coming around.
It's just that I would I guess I would panic if I saw a shadow person every time. Like that's my point. Like I guess that's my point. Like I speak for the dumb. We would be like, oh.
Well, I mean, like as an adult, as a paranormal investigator over the last couple of decades or whatever. I mean, that's what I'm out there in an investigation doing. Is like, I'm curious about what these things are. So if I'm seeing something, I'm going after. I was like, okay, who or what are you? I want to learn more. So
like Bigfoot.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
Go ahead, buddy.
Right. Like you say about Bigfoot, Mike, if you're going out there to find your wallet, you're not going to run away when you find your wallet. You're going to.
No,
exactly.
I have a bad. Yeah, my Bigfoot thing is always they're always like, yeah, we saw we went hunting for Bigfoot, spent like 8 days tracking up there. We found them, and I'm like, well, what did you do? Take pictures? Oh no, well we ran.
Yeah.
What?
Spent all that time to try to find it, and then you run. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Like my theory is I'd rather be mauled and have a great obituary than just run. Like if I see Bigfoot, I'm gonna run at him, see what happens.
Right.
Maybe I'll wrestle him. Who knows, Mike? You never know what can happen with Bigfoot, right? Buddy, go ahead with your question.
So yeah, you was it?
Universe.
We were talking about extraterrestrials.
How shadow people could be
There you go,
extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Could you explain that? Because that blows my mind completely.
Yeah. No, this is I was on Ancient Aliens earlier this year talking about that, and some different ideas and concepts. So one of them is that they could be using some sort of cloaking device, like let's say it's a physical being that's coming down here. They've got their spaceship up there, and they're down here trying to investigate the planet, kind of research, learn more about humanity, that sort of thing. But they don't want to be, I guess, caught right away, for lack of a better term. They're kind of trying to be secretive about it. So they may, because they're more advanced technology, or they have a more advanced civilization, maybe they have some sort of cloaking device that they're enacting to come down here and scope things out, but not fully understanding the physiology of our eyes. Maybe it doesn't fully come off as being a something that's cloaked. It could come off as something as a shadow. We mentioned earlier, a shimmer type person. So maybe it's coming off like that, like not a pure fully cloaked, and there's an ET in the room, and comes off as a shadow. And actually, there's a lot of crossover between shadow experiences and ET experiencers, where a lot of the stories, not all of them, but a lot of them, where they wake up in the middle of the night, there's this entity that's in the room, and some of them will say it was a shadow. Other people will say it was an extraterrestrial, it was a gray alien, and I was paralyzed, and that sort of thing. You get like some similar crossover between the two realms. So that's one possible idea.
Mike, you also get though stories where they'll say, I woke up and there was like an old woman combing her hair.
Yeah, the old hag.
bed.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, and I'll say, like, what did you do? And they'll be like, I just asked her why she was there. And I'm like, honest to God, and I don't mean to be mean, my first instinct would be to kick her off the bed. If I wake up and there's a woman combing her hair on the edge of my bed and my feet are anywhere, no, that's not your reaction, buddy. You're not booting this person you don't know off your bed. Really?
I'm grabbing my phone and turning my camera on as quietly as I can.
Well, it's commonly associated with sleep paralysis. So a lot of people in that situation physically can't move.
What if they can?
Yeah, well, I mean, and sleep paralysis is a real physical, it's a real biological phenomenon. Yeah, they're kind of two separate things that can happen at the same time. But I have a story in my book, Eric Gerard, and he has a story in there. Woke up in the middle of the night. He's got the old hag sitting on his chest, which is a lot of the stories where you have the old hag or a ghoul or something like that, sitting on the chest. And he actually grabbed her and threw her off the bed. They went rolling onto the floor, and once they hit the floor, she disappeared. But he was able to physically grab her and throw her off the bed. Yeah,
we had Chris DeCesare on.
Okay, yeah,
and
Chris.
He was telling that story about how he was like at one point up in the air holding on to his pillow, like not up in the air, but he was fighting to hold his pillow with something up in the air, and I'm like, that's the most bizarre thing I can think of. Like, as far as his roommate was concerned, I think his roommate ran out of the room and that was the end of it. Like, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, was seeing that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's gotta be tough. Like, things like that see. Those are the things that I worry about. Bless you.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, bless you. See, I worry about stuff like that. The shadow people, I'm still. So, the term paranormal is extremely vague.
Yeah.
And I think the term shadow people has become vague in a sense of what I guess the regular person would think is like, just what I would think is, or I've been told, is like a shadow person is an evil entity, usually that's
which, yeah, I mean,
that's what I was told.
And that frustrates me. And that frustrates me.
It's interesting, you know what I mean?
Well, and they're not all evil, and so that frustrates me when people try to say they're the evil, most evil beings, the darkest of the dark, or whatever. It's shadow people. They're like humans. Some humans are good, some humans are bad. Some shadow people are good, some shadow people are bad. Depends on the particular shadow, who they are, what their agenda is, etc. Most are actually just they're rather benign. They're standing there watching, observing. They're really not doing a lot of anything. It's kind of creepy, sure, because they're in your room, they're kind of invading your space or whatever, but many times they're actually not doing anything nasty and nefarious. Are some of them evil, nasty, and nefarious? Sure. I've been on those cases where they are. Other times you have stories of where they're actually doing something benevolent. They're actually helping somebody. So you have those stories too. It's a mix.
All right, but in my room right there, that's strike one.
Yeah, just because it's an intruder. Yeah, it's an intruder. Sure.
All right, we can agree on that, though, right? Strike one.
That doesn't mean they're evil. They're invading your space. Yeah, it doesn't mean they're evil.
All right. I could wake up and there could be like a 75-year-old guy in a Hawaiian shirt, bad shorts, white socks pulled up. I'd still want him out of my room. You know what I'm trying to say? Joey, do you get that?
Yeah, I'd be in the same boat.
Right.
Sleeping, if there's an open door, I'm always peeking over because I'm like, man, one of these friggin' days, I'm gonna see some shadow. I'm gonna see something I don't want to see, and it's gonna be it.
Okay, so it's already an intruder, but maybe it's not, because maybe my room isn't really my room. It's their room. I believe in vibrations, different things going on.
Yeah, you have time slips. You may be looking at somebody from another point in time, like 50 years ago or whatever.
Let me ask you this then, time slips. Because this is one that bugs me. You know, the Mandela effect. Like, so
yeah,
some of them are just not, but some of them I believe in, actually. Like I've had
it happen to me.
I feel like it happened between 1991 to 95. I'm not joking with you. If you go back and really analyze this, around that time, I feel like something happened where like it moved on, and then everything looking back when the internet got going and really rocking, it was like different. Like the biggest one to me is Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. No, that kills me because that's all I can think of from being a kid. And then secondly, if you watch an episode of Letterman, Johnny Carson's on it, and he's got a big check, and he's like, Dave, Ed couldn't be here, but wouldn't you know it? And it was Ed McMahon. It was Publishers Clearinghouse, $1 million check. But he never worked for the company.
You're right.
By the company's website and by everything they say, he never worked for the company. How the frick does that make sense? You guys, like, come on. Why would Johnny pick Publishers Clearinghouse and use Ed's name if he knew Ed worked for another company? You know what I'm trying to say? That's not helping Ed out.
I've had it happen to me. It actually happened about my mother and I. Some years back, we were talking about this movie that we're figuring, okay, 1950s, because it was a black and white movie, and the premise of the movie was that this plane, World War II plane, had gone down in Africa. The crew had died, and they became ghosts. They didn't know they were dead. They were playing, and to pass the time away for rescue, they were playing baseball. But however, they were dead. And finally the Americans came by, and they found the plane and were able to retrieve the bodies. And basically, when they retrieved the bodies, they were like, okay, we were actually dead. And then the one guy, they couldn't find his body, so he ended up remaining there. To kind of, he ended up by himself. So my mother and I are talking about, play baseball by himself. So my mother and I are talking about this movie, one day at my parents' house, and we're like, what the heck was that movie? We couldn't think of the name of it, but we're talking about it like this. And so I'm like, all right, so I'll go home, I'll Google it, I'll try to find the movie. And I'm searching around. I can't find this freaking movie. I'm like describing the whole thing. Finally, there are like some forums where people are also, it was like different aviation movie forums and stuff like that, kind of really obscure. And people are talking about this movie, with the same question: what the heck was that movie? And there are people that are answering, okay, you're misremembering a movie from the 1970s that had William Shatner in it called Soul Survivor. And it's like, well,
you would remember Shatner.
You would remember Shatner being in it. Plus, 1970s, it's a color movie. And in this movie, they knew they were dead from the start and all that stuff. I'm like, no, it can't be that movie.
Shatner would break anything, dude. I mean,
absolutely.
Dead. What happened?
But they're people from all over the world. I'm seeing from other countries like Israel and Germany or whatever, and they're all remembering it the same way I did. But people are telling them, no, you're misremembering this. So okay, fine. I'll look up Soul Survivor. I will watch this movie. So I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, I don't think this is it. I don't think this is it, because it's color. There's Shatner. He's one of the Americans that comes to try to find this plane. Yeah, and it's like, I don't know if this is the movie. And they're playing baseball. Okay, fine. And they're ghosts playing baseball. Cool. But finally it like sealed it when there's this one moment from that movie where one of the younger guys, and he's not that bright, he goes off over by the tents from the rescue crew, and he's listening to a baseball game on the radio. And he comes back over to the other guys, the other ghosts, a few minutes later, and they're like, oh, so how was the game? And he's like, well, the game was great, but I don't understand how, Brooklyn is now in LA, thinking, the Dodgers, like they moved the whole city of Brooklyn to LA when they moved the Dodgers. Doesn't make sense. But I remembered that line from when I was a little kid, and I'm like, holy crap, this is that movie, because I remember that particular line. But how in the world did it become like, a black and white movie from the 1950s? Certainly wouldn't have had William Shatner, to this color movie in the 70s with Shatner. It made no sense to me. But yet, my mother and I remembered it that way. These people from all over the world remembered it the other way. Mandela effect.
So, like, all right. So I know
something happened.
I sound crazy when I talk like this, but so I do believe in like parallel type universes, and here's how I see it. So NASA studies time and it keeps track of it, and it's linear. It's always been a one linear line, and there was always rumors of one blip I want to go. I say once it goes back maybe 10 years, and just the idea of a blip means that there was like a blip. So that would mean that there's lines that can be drawn through the blip. You know what I mean? Like, so there would be parallel lines. So there would be parallel times, right? Because we just keep thinking time is linear. It's just going to go straight. It doesn't have to.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And we could go down a real rabbit hole with this. So first of all, there have been studies lately with the Anita Project and the Ice Cube Project down in Antarctica where they have discovered what they believe through the neutrinos down there and the studies that they've done, a parallel universe running in reverse time. That in itself is just fascinating.
Yep.
But but what I believe is, time doesn't work as a line. It's not like the river of time or whatever. I believe, I call it stack time theory, and Einstein had his similar concepts and theories with space-time continuum, where I believe it's all stacked up in a straight up and down column, for lack of a better term. Like where basically take a location. Like where you're sitting right now, and everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen is all happening concurrently at the same time.
It never stopped happening.
No, it never stopped happening. It keeps going. And we don't really know what the catalyst is, but every once in a while, two of those moments will resonate at the same frequency, same vibration, like we were talking about earlier. And we will get a glimpse of that time frame, whether it's the past or it's the future. And that's where you get like some of these stories of people where they see, a ghost or an apparition or whatever, and that ghost or apparition is looking at them as if they're the ghost. You have stories of this, like at the Conjuring House, Andrea Perron and her mother. There's one of these things happened there, where the ghosts look at them and the one's looking at the other. Well, will you look at that, looking at Andrea and her mother as if they are the ghosts? So, then that's a time slip. So the question then becomes, if you bring it back to the Mandela effect, okay, so let's say this time slip is going on and you're briefly able to interact with another point in time. What if you change something? Is that where the Mandela effect comes into play?
Yeah, I do believe that there was a bump, like, for some reason, and I do think that like minor things got moved. But
yeah, it doesn't have to be big. Yeah.
When you try to explain that to somebody, it's they don't want to hear that. They just don't want to hear that. But it's like there's a lot of things that just don't make sense that I remember completely differently, or that a lot of people remember completely differently.
Yep.
So it's like, again,
it can't be group psychosis. You're talking about people who didn't know each other that are living in different parts of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that, like, again, the average person doesn't. They've become so jaded. It's like you got to turn into a wolf, like, live on TV to get them to pay attention to you. You know what I mean? Like back, like in the old American Werewolf in London type transformation, which is by far my favorite transformation, I think, as far as wolves. Right?
Cool.
Is that the best one? I think it is.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So, Mike, you sound like you were watching TV back when I was watching TV. Do you remember watching Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein?
I don't know about the meat. I mean, I watched some Abbott and Costello.
It was all
the meat Frankenstein. I remember when they were the colonial ghosts. I remember that one.
Oh wow, that's the one I never seen. Yeah. All right, Joe, go ahead. You're up.
So, I mean, I just love this part of the conversation because you guys are saying, a lot of people are jaded and they don't think about it, because what we're talking about is a lot to comprehend. I firmly believe, and I'm also watching Stranger Things, so I'm just in love with this concept right now, that there is continuously multiple different timelines and universes and things going on at the same time that we have no idea. Even when it comes to UFOs, like the fact that people don't think that out in the expanse of nothingness that is around us, that continues to get larger, that we're the only living being. There's so much out there that as a human we can't understand, and it's just not fathomable to your brain. Like there's so much existential things going on as a human just in your own life, to think of the fact that there are other lives and yous and things going on. It's a lot for someone, but this is the stuff I love, because it is time isn't what we say it is, because we define time to understand it, but time moves at a different way that we don't understand.
Joey, when you think with a sports mind, you get stats, you get numbers, you get exact totals, you get winners, and you get losers. when it comes to stuff like this, right? It's more nuanced. It's hard for the average person to get their head wrapped around it and believe that there's stuff that they can't quite
comprehend,
or they don't have the intelligence, or their brain's not working at a high enough capacity to be able to do stuff.
Yeah, for a lot of people, it's just uncomfortable. They don't want to. They don't want to think about all these crazy mysteries of the world because it's gonna break their little bubble of the world that they're living in. You know, it's hard enough for people just to kind of scrape by and survive in the world today. So when you start throwing all these other things out there, they kind of don't want to think about it because it's like, oh my gosh, if the world isn't what I already think it is, and I'm just trying to scrape by and get through the world that I'm already in now. That's going to blow up. It's going to blow up their whole reality. So it's too much for them to handle.
And that's become with anything. Like here's a quick example. If you bring this up around people, they act like they got a headache and they just change the subject and walk out of the room. Ghislaine Maxwell. You talk about that and you're like, she got sentenced. Well, did they find out who were the people that were on the list of things? And people go, allegedly, by the way, Joey, allegedly. It's all comedy.
Got to throw allegedly in there, yeah.
Allegedly, but people just go, it don't matter. It's like, my God, what it's hard, man. It's hard to get people to pay attention. It's hard to get them to understand. You know what I mean?
I love this last comment we just got from Sarah, where people have multiple choices. And does that mean that if you make a choice, it splits? And, you create a different universe from making one decision?
I have a hard time with that one. I have a hard time with that. And I know Sarah, she knows my opinion on this one. I have a hard time. So the idea of, okay, if there's like a time slip and you change a little bit of something, that might split up. I'm okay with that one. But when it comes to, you think about your just daily life. We make millions of decisions a day. Me making a decision right now to pick up this coffee mug, right? Is a decision that I just made. I cannot imagine that just spun off some whole other universe right now. And me just making a decision to say those words would have spun off another universe. Me, tapping my nose right now, spun off another universe. No.
So I agree with you on that one. But one for me that's just very relevant to me. It happened recently. Is I'm starting a new job working IT at the Newport Naval Academy, and when I first started going to school for IT, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to go to the Newport Naval Academy. I have a security clearance. Like, it'd be great for me. But I never knew how that would ever happen. There's I don't know anybody who works there. It's not like you can just, find these things. It's just one of those things. You need to know people. And I happened to have an event happen with my guard unit where somebody had to come talk to me. And he was like, hey, I heard you're ETSing. What's going on with that? And one thing led to another. I told him I'm in IT looking for a job or looking for an opportunity. He works for the IT company at the Newport Naval Academy, hooks me up, helps me get in. And now here I am starting a new job. And while I get picking up, a can isn't going to alter time. But those little choices and decisions and things that happen and opportunities to grab, those are the things where I think of how would things have been different if I didn't agree to meet with him at that moment? If I put my foot down and told my unit, no, I will not do what you need me to do. No, just come and talk to me. Those are the things I think that you need. I look at more than simple choices, like taking a left instead of a right going down the road kind of thing.
Yeah, big choices have a great influence on people. Making a move from one state to another, a new job, whatever, making a decision to get married or not married. Those things are big. They're going to have massive, massive ramifications, not only in your life, but the lives of other people. So yeah, it does make you stop and think, how would things have been otherwise? And there are even things that we don't even think of. I had a guy reach out to me some months ago. This was probably like back in the fall, and I knew him like 20 years ago at a church that we used to go to together. And, I just told him about, I worked in, IT at a library system. I'm just telling we're just chatting, what do you do? That sort of thing. And, I told him about my job in the IT department of the library. And he thought the fact that I worked for a, library system was really cool. This is a guy that's like 10 years older than me. I figured, he's already got his, career going and all that stuff. He ended up, he tells me this. He's like, I never told you this, but after our conversations about, your job and working for the library, I actually looked into what it would take to become a librarian and work within in a library system. So he went back to school for all of that and decided to become a librarian and work within these different library systems. So it's like just the conversation that I had with this guy changed his whole life. Yeah. And that's just like wild.
Yeah.
So listen, but to me, that's the norm. I like, because I'll tell you what, I had twins boy and a girl in 03, right?
Mhm.
So I ended up coaching both their basketball teams. And then with my son, it was like all-star teams. My daughter was all-star teams and AAU and all this stuff. In coaching young kids, if you're really coaching them, you're not one of those people that just yells.
Yeah.
You can say one thing to a kid and change the rest of his whole season and way of playing basketball. Like, I'll pull a kid aside and I'll be like, hey, man, I need you tonight. Like, especially not like one of my shooters. I'll grab one of my guys at hustle. I'll be like, I need you tonight because you need to do this and that and that. I'm like, you're probably not going to score but 10 points. I said, but if you do what I'm asking you, we're going to win this game. It's like I could see where that changed him
Mhm.
as a person because he started to do the dirty work. Like, I watched him go on years after, and he was a kid not afraid of like setting a pick, doing stuff that no one wanted to do. You know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely can see dude, you change stuff quickly. Like, or how about this? A negative thing happens, and you look back, and that directly affected a very positive thing in the future.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
definitely.
happened to me with passing my dad. My dad died, but when you look down, if he didn't die, this would have happened, that would have happened, and then this would have never happened. It's like, wow.
Right.
So it all works out. So Mike, I gotta ask again. All right. When it comes to the world of paranormal, because it is a very vague word nowadays, where are you not like a proponent, like cryptids? Where do you draw the line, or is it that you think that whatever is kind of like the human mind can do?
I mean, I'm open to a lot of different ideas and concepts. I mean, no, I'm not going out into the woods and squatching, but that doesn't mean I don't believe that, there are, that Bigfoot isn't out there somewhere. I'm just not going to be a guy that's out there looking for him. But I'll share some of those different stories in some of my different books, because I think it's kind of relevant. People have had legitimate experiences with something out there. Might not totally understand, what that is. So it's all, everything's, connected. And so you're trying to, find those connections and see how these different ideas and concepts are related. So I'm kind of open to it all, but there are, certain things that I'm not going to run out there and go chasing right now.
See, here's the thing: open to all things. I can't get around that. Like, I can't see how someone can be open to all things. I had a conversation with that girl at that the Salem, USS Salem.
Yeah, she's nutty.
I can't be open with all things. Like, I some things I believe in, some things I just don't. And the other thing is, I have a thing that, Mike, maybe you can explain it, where I actually hear a voice in my head tell me to go do something, and it usually turns out to be something positive. Like, I'm not gonna. I thought really quick again last night. But for some reason, as I'm coming home last night, I'm like, someone goes in my head. I'm thinking, I'll take the back road. I never go down the back road home. And as I'm coming down the back road with my truck, there's this white little type dog. I don't know what type it is. Dude, I have a dog that's about 125 pounds. Like, I don't know what this dog was. It's just like a mop, and it's running up the middle of the street. I got out. Push comes to shove. Next thing you know, this morning at 10 a.m., the family came to pick it up. I had to sleep with it in the basement because my dogs wanted to kill it. But if I didn't take that turn, I don't see that dog. That dog gets killed because I stopped two cars by jumping in front of them like this. They fly up that hill. So all I'm thinking is, I don't take that turn, that dog dies. And then I didn't want to take it home. But if I don't take that dog home, what has happened to that dog, right? So it's like, I made that. I heard it literally in my head. Take the back roads. So that's, I think, where I have if there's a term called paranormal, that's where things happen with me. Plus, I read people really well. Like, if I get to know you in like a buddy knows this, like, if you give me 5-10 minutes, I'll know somebody really well. And it's just an intuition. So, like, I think that's paranormal. I just don't think it's because of the word so big.
It's kind of vague. Well, and and I like what Hans Holzer used to say about that. Regarding the term supernatural, like, there is no supernatural world. Everything that exists is natural. But there are certain things that just they aren't as common. It's totally natural for all these things to happen. It's not supernatural. It's just. But some things don't happen as often. They're kind of out of the norm. So that we've used the term paranormal for that. But it's totally natural for it to happen.
It's an overused word, and they can't figure out what else to call it. You know that paranormal
Right.
world does not know what else to say, like what else to call and it's become a word, like I said, that goes from like here to all the way to there. It's crazy. It covers. It's a big tent. You know what I'm saying? Guys, gonna go around the horn before we let Mike speak. Joey, any last words?
No, I think as you so kindly pointed out, I've been awfully chatty tonight, so I'll keep it short and simple. Mike, thanks for coming on and putting up with some of my crazy theories and ideas. But sometimes someone comes on and has some crazy ideas. You throw not saying your ideas are crazy, but has some interesting ideas, some different ways of looking at things, and you kind of want to get your input and see what that person thinks. So thank you for coming on and talking to us. Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Thank you,
buddy.
Ooh, Mike, I greatly appreciate you coming on. You have a vast knowledge of topics that we could have gone through. I was ready to talk about the Alaskan Triangle and oh my God, the various places.
Micro brewing wine. I saw that in the comments. I was going to ask that at some point, but I just couldn't get to it.
Baseball fan. There was a lot of things that we could have talked about tonight, but thank you for coming on. It was like I'm just blown away. We'd love to have you come back on and maybe talk more about some of your other books. It just like blows me away.
Yeah, we can
tune in next week though for our talking about coming back on the show. She's been back on the show. This will be her third time on the show. Joe, I think this is your first time with her. UFOologist and author Jean Broida will be joining us next Sunday live at 7:05 for talk about aliens and when they visit us.
Nice.
Okay. Mike, anything you want to say to wrap up? Like,
I mean, if people want to check out my website, MikeRicksecker.com, that'd be great. I have my online learning portal, ConnectedUniversePortal.com. Next big thing, I have a bunch of, some events and things like that coming up this year, but the next really big one is the Egypt tour in February. So people want to join us for Egypt, that would be fantastic.
That's awesome.
Mike, I got to say, very fascinating person. There really is so many different ways to go. I actually had written down asking about the shadow person class, like paying for a shadow person class. Like, to me, that is so, I don't understand. So it's like, I got to understand a little bit more now. I wanted to have a conversation where we get to know kind of more about who you are and break it down that way, without getting that whole like the canned like spiel that some people will just give. We like to break it up, shake it up, see
absolutely.
And to be honest, right, Joe? He's pretty much good in every. He's checking a lot of the boxes as far as knowledge wise, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely.
Pretty damn good guess, I would think. Right,
Yeah.
Mike. Lastly,
great conversation.
Are you a sports fan of all the major sports?
Yeah, primarily baseball is my favorite, so I'm a Red Sox fan.
Oh yeah,
hell yeah! I mean, it's not really a great time.
The whole month of July has
fan,
been a total train wreck.
Oh,
but
sucked, man.
We're about to watch Vasquez, Eovaldi, and JD get traded, but whatever.
Yeah.
What about football?
Football. I mean, I'm in the Cleveland area, so I'm a Browns fan.
Oh, good for you.
God bless you.
I have a Ozzie Newsome signed jersey.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's right here.
Sweet. Nice.
Yeah,
I'm
Has it on command.
You guys all know I collect sports memorabilia, but I have a lot of Browns. I have a Lunar Browns helmet signed by one of the younger guys that's on the defense. And Lunar means it's like a white Browns helmet. It's the weirdest thing.
Oxymoron.
Anyways,
yeah,
Mike, it was fun having you, man. Love to have you back. I think people should check you out. There's a lot that you're talking about. To be quite honest, I can tell you're telling the truth. We can tell that you're being like sincere. We kind of smell that out, and I appreciate you being on.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Anytime.
For Mike Ricksecker, Joey Paranormal, Buddy, Money Theory is me, Mike Leopard King Michael. This was Legit Paranormal, brought to you by LegitPodcast.com. Thank you for watching. We will see you again, and we are